Good afternoon. Each year, our team hosts a one-day Talent Forward conference to showcase the business community's impact and leadership in education and workforce issues. We are more than a year into the pandemic, which has presented many new kinds of challenges. And with close to 10 million Americans out of work and over 8 million job openings, education and workforce are front and center if we're to close the people jobs gap. So rather than wait until this fall, this year we will host monthly conversations with the kind of people we need to hear from, those who will help us not only recover what has been lost over this year, but exceed any progress made before the pandemic. There are too many great leaders and good examples and stories that need to be shared now to help you, to help your organizations, to help your communities. And where better to start than creating more equitable pathways to the workforce? That is where we will spend our attention today. And now I'm honored to welcome Tom Monahan. Tom is the CEO and president of DeVry University, relatively new in that role since fall of 2020. Tom spent 2 decades prior as the CEO and chairman of CEB, a best practice insights and technology company, one of the fastest growing globally, reaching nearly $1 billion in revenue under his leadership. Tom has clearly had incredible success as a business leader, and when named to lead DeVry, it was said he, quote, was brought in to accelerate DeVry's growth, innovation, and transformation. I'm excited to be here to talk to him today about a new product launch out of DeVry, but first, welcome. And can we begin with your sharing a bit about your journey to DeVry and how your corporate success is influencing your approach to this new role?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Great to see you today. My journey to the education sector began, what I like to say, on the demand side. When you're running a company, you're all about talent. Every day you wake up and there's always, particularly if it's in a services company or a technology company where you really don't have any assets, you just have people. We were forever finding places we needed more people, needed better people. Recruiting was a real focus of what we did. And we heard again and again that was a broadly shared problem, particularly as the economy rotates from into a truly digital economy. And I got really intrigued with that problem, and I sort of went from one side of the table almost to the other, from the demand side of, hey, we need people, we need to recruit, we need to develop, to let's see if we can't increase the availability and quality of talent in the marketplace, and that's DeVry's mission is to do that for principally adult learners, people who are making a career change, looking to accelerate their progression, and it's an untapped reservoir of talent for our economy. So I was really excited when the opportunity came along, and I was really excited to what's common in other areas of business, to sort of go from one part of the supply chain and backward integrate. It's less common, I guess, in this in this sector for someone to come from business and say, hey, I've been upstream from you in the supply chain, and now I want to work on making sure there's great availability and quality of talent.
Yeah, and I'm just struck by the language that you use, right? The demand side and the supply chain. You speak our language. We certainly sort of talk in those same terms, and I think when we first started doing it, we ran into some resistance, I think, from sort of traditional education sector or training sector. It felt like we were talking about widgets, that people were widgets. And so I'm just curious how that sort of language is either met at DeVry, or are you sort of challenging the language used?
There's a bunch of words I'd never heard till I came to the education sector. One of my favorite is employer. I realized I've been in business for 30 years and never once called myself an employer. I called myself at various points a software developer. I called myself a division leader or a product manager. I called myself lots of things. but I never called myself an employer. And I think that overgeneralization and not speaking the language of business, I think, and I don't want to recommend for every university or every post-secondary institute anywhere needs to do this, but at DeVry, we believe we do. We need to speak the language of our corporate partners, not because we don't care about our students and their development, because we do care about our students and their development. We want to get them ready and point them and connect them very much with specific opportunities. Not people. My joke about employer is back in the days when we traveled, you'd settle into your plane seat, you'd talk to the person to the left of you and to the right of you while they're going through stuff to get the plane off the ground. And I never once heard anyone say, usually a little bit of like, why you're going to city X or city Y, what do you do, et cetera. I never heard one person say, oh, I'm an employer. And because then I would have been like, oh my gosh, I'm an employer too. What a coincidence. Two employers next to each other. It's just not how the language of business is. And I think we serve our students incredibly well by saying, yes, we have lots of corporate partners, but more specifically, we have insight into the very specific things they're looking for. So rather than, software development, getting down to QA analyst, getting down to Scrum lead, rather than cyber, getting down to forensic analyst. What are the specific roles, specific capabilities, so we can really draw the straightest line possible from where our student is today to the next most interesting thing for them to do in their career. And the only way to do that is to speak the language of business. And I recognize that's not going to be true for every university, but for us, it's really important to how we operate.
Yeah, and I remember when we had an initial conversation, our first met, you said, I'm just laser focused. I mean, I know exactly who my customer is, at least from the student perspective. I know exactly who they are and why they're here at DeVry and what they want. And it really is sort of shaped why that connection to the business community is so important. I guess this is a great segue into talk about specifically why we're here to speak today, which is about this new program that you all launched, the Women in Tech Scholars Program. And obviously the alignment to business is really important. Can you just talk a little bit about, I don't know if it's your first major initiative as CEO, but I know it was quick in the process. So I would love to hear a little bit more about the thinking around it and why it's so important, particularly with this past year and the pandemic and the impact on women.
As we were planning, we saw three trends coming together at scale. None of which was necessarily new, but all of which were radically accelerated. And first, let's be I'm thinking right now of my friends and colleagues in India that's suffering through an incredibly difficult time, and COVID has had many impacts on our society, on global health, on equity and justice with access to healthcare, on so many families. I recognize that the first most important impact of COVID has not been on the economy, but on the health and well-being of families globally. So, but the other impacts are ones we need to worry about too. And if I were a scientist, I'd probably put my energy into the global health thing. That's not what I do. I'm a business person and an educator. We saw three things happening as we were watching COVID unfold. One is a radical acceleration of the digital economy. This conversation's an example. If you think of, 2 years ago, we would have been sitting somewhere in your office building having this conversation, and yet look at the high quality digital conversation we're able to have and think about, I don't know what's for dinner tonight in the Monahan household, but I bet it's coming from a delivery app. At about 6:20, we'll decide we'll sort of stay. And I don't know what's happening after that, but I bet we stream something, right? You just look at telehealth. You look at so many things that were on sort of a 10-year trajectory to become digital that ended up on a 1-year trajectory to become digital. So we're emerging from the COVID period with a far more digital economy than we could have anticipated at this point. 2021 is the new 2030 from a digitization standpoint. So that's the first trend: radical compression of digitization. The second trend is under participation of women in the technology economy. If you just, women make up more or less half the workforce, sometimes a little more in some geos and metros, and they make up just a little more than a quarter of the tech workforce in tech-enabled roles and jobs. And that's not just the technology industry; it's technology roles in other companies. And then third was the fact that for a variety of reasons, women exited the workforce in droves during COVID. And some of the reasons are known and well understood: the burdens of doing care for others, the burdens of homeschooling, the burdens of just we're in our share disproportionately across gender. So for a lot of reasons, women exit the labor force. So you sort of put those three things together and you say, we have an urgent need. The trends are already underway: digital economy, underrepresentation of women in the tech workforce, combined with an exodus of women from the workforce. We now have an urgent need: get women on career paths which they were already underrepresented in at scale and quickly. And the more we spent time thinking about of all the ways we could sort of participate in helping the economy recover and society recover, this was an area where we knew stuff. We knew a lot about what technology roles represented great first and second level opportunities. We knew a lot about how to get people from point A to point B quickly. And if we put our resources and capability together, put money to work in terms of scholarships, used our alumni base to create mentorship, used our corporate partners to create connectivity to those roles, we thought this could be a really powerful place for us to focus.
I couldn't agree more, and so glad that you're doing it. So you launched in March, if I'm correct. And tell us a little bit. You mentioned scholarship, mentorship, the connectivity to business. Just walk us through just quickly, how does the program work, and where are you now with it?
Sure. Our focus was for putting together a series of cohorts of women who were looking to enter really the technology field. So it starts with programming, right? It starts with having great curriculum that get people from point A to point B. We luckily had the first most important part in place. We have a series of technology related programs that start with stackable certificates and go all the way up to bachelor's degrees, so that someone can get a credential quickly, but also stay on the path to getting a bachelor's degree. So we had that in place, and so that made this a powerful thing. And then we added in resources to give people scholarships so they could focus on an affordable education. We have been building cohorts of mentors to help people. One of the real challenges, and this math will be self-evident when you think about it, is if one of the most important things for someone to embrace any career path is great mentorship and connectivity and following people who are blazing a trail before them, the fact that women have been systemically underrepresented in the technology labor force does mean the availability of mentors is lower than you'd like. It's just part of the equation. So getting out and really working hard to assemble networks of mentors to build the infrastructure around a scale mentorship program, so that we were getting people. It wasn't just, hey, meet here's your mentor, here's the cohort you're mentoring. It's here's the process by which you get someone ready to thrive in a technology economy. And then activating our corporate partners. We have a great network of corporate partners who have jumped on board here and have said, this is great. They're helping us find mentors, which is the most urgent upstream activity right now. But they're giving us a lot of insight as to what roles they need, where we can plug people in. And so as people come through the program, we're going to very early on start connecting them up with those corporate partners. So it's really a three-legged stool. It's an incredible academic program built to enable someone to get a first credential and then stack, if they want to, into a full degree. But first and foremost, get a full credential that enables them to target a role in the digital economy. Then it's the support they're going to need for mentorship, student advising, et cetera. And then is that corporate connectivity on the back end to make sure that we're getting them connected into, back to the point you were making, specificity. It's not just technology. It's okay. You're targeting a job in digital marketing. What does that mean? What are the specific things you need to be doing well and be ready to accomplish day one in that job, and or cyber, or whichever of the specific tracks someone's following. We're going to be in a position. We're going to work with our corporate partners to really be specific and get someone out the back end.
Yeah. One of the things that I think resonated with me so much when we first discussed this program was the specificity that you talk about, and obviously the connectivity to the business community and your corporate partners. That is just critical. But then also just the focus on an individual and where they are and where they live. So how do you connect those individuals to actual opportunities where they are? Because I think we often get into a place where we talk about, we need, cyber professionals. Well, yes, for the most part, that is a common need across the United States, but it may not be the need in, I don't know, Louisville or something. I don't know. Yeah. So how did you do that, or why was that sort of an important piece to you?
It's why I'm such a big fan of the TPM initiative, because, the U.S. economy is huge. I hate to say that, but that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say. But we've got metros that would be G20 countries on their own. So talking about the skills gap at the U.S. level is a little large for anybody to think about taking on. And in particular, two things. Number one, for our student population, our average students in their late 30s, they are where they are usually. Some will move, and people always move in their careers, but they're not trying to do 4 years and go somewhere. They're trying to do 4 years and stay and contribute in their community. So our being connected, not at a national level to national pools, but very specifically what's happening on the ground in Louisville or St. Paul or wherever, is important. So we work. We have a network of regional leads on our corporate partners, and who work very much with specific employers in specific cities to say, hey, what's out there? What is needed in this city? And you're absolutely right that a mystique which is awesome and totally wrong, which is, I found sometimes talking with some elements of the public policy community, people hear tech, they think Silicon Valley, they think startup, and without question, pick your hub of tech innovation. They are hugely important to the economy, but ironically, because they're so important to the economy, the stuff they do creates jobs everywhere. And just an easy example is the Salesforce Foundation took a look at how many jobs would be created in their ecosystem. And no matter how fast you think Salesforce itself is going to grow, there's probably about 10 times as many jobs created working on the Salesforce platform at companies across the US. So a really important part of what we're doing is saying, okay, we're going to assume, look at digital health. I think if you go back 2 years ago, the number of us who had actually done a visit to our doctor via video was close to zero, and now it's close to 100%. And you think of all the ways that data can be leveraged, et cetera. And then you say, well, how is that changing the technology architecture and mission of a major hospital system? And city by city, who are the major hospital systems? What are the specific needs they have? How, which platforms are they working on, which EHR systems are they using, which telehealth systems are they using. You can start to get very specific to say to students, beyond digital health, let's get down to what the specific needs of Partners Health in Boston, or really, really focused on not national level skill issues, but regional and local skill issues, because that's where the jobs are. And one thing that will be interesting to watch is, if you look at Alphabet came out today, and I think this is a reasonable proxy for how the world could work. I think there are some roles and some capabilities that can be anywhere, but I don't think we're going to move to an everyone working from anywhere thing. So geo is going to still matter, both to the employee, because you want collaboration and cohesion and alignment, and to the company because you want the ability to bring people together. Maybe not every day, maybe don't stick them in traffic every day, but I think geo is still going to matter even in a more remote work world. So we are very focused on making sure that when we're working with a student or working with an employer, we're taking the reality of physics into our planning and our approach.
Well, I knew this conversation was going to fly, and we could spend a lot more time. But maybe to wrap it up, I think, you mentioned corporate partners. You obviously come with that, sort of background and perspective, and probably relationships and experience. We're the chamber, and we anticipate a lot of folks watching a program like this are going to be the business community. And what would you say to folks listening who are interested in diversifying their workforce, particularly supporting women? How do they partner with someone like a DeVry? And what would you want them to know about this program, or just the importance of their engagement with institutions like DeVry, regardless of the program?
Sure, I'd have two asks. One is, call us. I mean, we are eager to, we want to be known as a great partner to the corporate community. We have people who spend their days doing this, and are excellent at working backwards from a business problem. And the second thing is demand innovation from us. I'm going to go back and use that supply chain word that has probably gotten us both in trouble as we've talked about this. But you look in any industry, and most great innovations, just an easy example is this wouldn't be available without, yes, Apple's an incredible innovator, but it wouldn't be available without incredible innovation on the part of their chip suppliers, great innovation on the part of Corning to bring totally new types of glass to market. Think about all the different material science innovation that went into creating one innovation. And we think our job is to be similarly innovative in support of our corporate partners. That we see ourselves as being innovative in support of the innovations they're trying to achieve. So we know right now Women in Tech is a great example, because we know people are really trying hard to create a more diverse, inclusive environment, particularly in technology-related roles. And we see ourselves as trying to innovate as part of that objective. But bring us other business objectives and say, here's what we're trying to get done. How can you innovate to support me? It's what supply chain partners do everywhere else in the economy, and we'd like to be part of that.
I mean, amen is all I can say to that. And thank you for the talent pipeline management shout out. It's absolutely sort of where we started from in the creation of that, was to say the business community innovates around their supply chain and manages it to the nth degree, and they don't do that with their quote talent supply chain. And so how can we help them to do that? So I appreciate you being here, Tom. It really was a fun conversation, and as I said, we could go on and on, but glad to highlight DeVry and your leadership and the Women in Tech Scholars Program. Thank you so much for all that you're doing.
All right, thanks, Cheryl. Really appreciate this conversation and the support from the Chamber on this vital issue.
And now I'm so honored to introduce to you Sallie Krawcheck, a trailblazer for women with an impressive career on Wall Street, who co-founded and serves as CEO of Ellevest, a financial services company built by women for women. Hi, Sallie. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. Really appreciate your time.
Hey, Cheryl. So happy to join you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, the theme of the conversations we've had today are really about creating equitable pathways, particularly for women and women of color. Can you start off just telling us a little bit about the inspiration that led to co-founding a financial company that aims to create a more equitable society?
Yes. So the initial inspiration for it was the recognition that women, for all that we talk about the gender pay gap, which is moving in the right direction pre-pandemic slowly, there's actually a much bigger gender wealth gap where women have just 32 cents to a white man's dollar. Black women own just 1 penny. Brown women own just 1 penny. And the recognition that there is between pay and wealth a lot that's gone wrong here. Women don't invest as much as men do. Women have more debt than men do. Women have higher interest rates on the debt that they have. Women won't save as much. And so how do we help to solve this problem? And it's a big problem. It's a big problem because not just with the numbers, but money is women's number one source of stress. And if we can fix that, if we can get her to take action around her money, that's the number one source of her confidence in her future. So we're solving her number one problem. And if we get more money in the hands of women, I don't have to tell you, Cheryl, the economy grows, society is fairer, children are better off. You know who else is better off when women have more money? Men, because we buy from their businesses as well. And so if we can get money to women, then we can really help grow the economy and make it fairer. Now, my old industry will tell you, the interesting, Sallie, but obviously women are risk averse. Obviously women aren't as good at investing. Obviously women aren't as good with money. Obviously women need more financial education. And it's obvious because they don't invest as much as men do. And we were really the first that said, well, maybe actually women aren't risk averse. Maybe they're not investing as much because the product and the industry doesn't serve them well. That in an industry where 99% of investment dollars are managed in companies owned by men, overwhelmingly white men, maybe they built a business for themselves and maybe the motivation isn't there as much. And so Ellevest was really the first business that said we're going to build ourselves from the ground up for women and throw away a lot of the old preconceptions about what they're looking for, and have recently passed. I wasn't so long ago, we said that we passed $1 billion, now more than $1.1 billion in assets under management and 100,000 plus customers and clients.
That is fantastic. So give us the, however many minute version you want of the types of things that Ellevest does for women. Like what does it look like?
Well,
if I were to come to you.
I really want to wrap around her when it comes to money. And so we don't look like anybody else out there. And I keep playing with calling us a financial wellness company. And then I'm like, is that too soft? I don't know. But we started as a robo-advisor. You would have called us a robo-advisor, Cheryl. I would have bristled against it and said, no, we're a digital advisor. But we were a robo-advisor with one really key difference, which is that rather than assuming as our algorithm puts together the investment portfolios that you are average, which works for men, because if you assume these average, well, men earn more, their salaries peak later, and they die sooner. So if you assume all those on average in putting together a retirement portfolio, for example, then he dies with too much money. You do that for a woman who earns less, her salary peaks sooner, she takes more career breaks, she lives longer, 80% of women die single, then she could die without money. So we were the first that said, average is not good enough. And that is in so many other industries, like the medical industry, where all the tests are done on men, dating sites were put together with men first in mind until Whitney Wolf came in with Bumble. We put a female first lens on it and said, we're going to be gender aware, female, male, non-binary, as we put together these digital investment portfolios. That was number one. We then added financial advisors as women with more complex needs came and said, we want to be part of it. We said, oh, too bad, we're a digital advisor. And then I had, Cheryl, this one really important moment where a really successful woman said, I want to be part of this movement. And by the way, I'm tired of having my money managed at companies that I wouldn't let my daughter work at. I'm tired of supporting with my money companies and institutions that haven't supported me, that don't reflect me. Huge wow moment. Third wow moment was during the pandemic when we were still really just products and got such demand for information, short burst of learning, coaching, guidance from women. It was overwhelming. And in fact, during the spring of last year, when Ellevest said we will answer any money question our community has, we were 80% of social engagement in our industry. Startups and
Wow.
I mean, wow. And so today we help her with money in a variety of ways. We're products, yes. We're education, we're coaching, we're investing, we're banking. But I think a key difference with us is we also have executive coaches. Because women told us, help me make more. I trust you to advise me. Then help me invest to grow it. Help me save, help me spend. And so I want to wrap around her because financial wellness has really been overlooked for women.
That's so fantastic. I can't wait to sign up. So we know, obviously, the pandemic, the economic shutdowns, disproportionate impact on women. You've mentioned the gender wealth gap. What are you seeing from your largely female membership in terms of just the last year and what it has meant to women?
It's been so tough for women everywhere, whether it's the women who are in the service industry and disproportionately risk their health or disproportionately lost their jobs in the service industry, or the women who are privileged enough to work from home, where men, you were reading early in the pandemic, I'm working out more and I'm not having dinner with the kids more, than the women are like, I've got children hanging off of me every which way through the Zoom. And those gender roles reasserted themselves. And so women were doing even more childcare in the home, even more housework in the home. Men's productivity increased 50%, women's declined 30% plus. Men now are getting promoted at 3 times the rate of women. And what drives me bonkers is you often read about women choosing to quit to stay at home. That's not a choice. You know, when you are making 80 cents to your spouse's dollar and that traditional, expectation is that you'll take care of the children, and you do, you're leaving the workforce is not a choice. And what, of course, is frustrating is we've recently seen not as much of a rebound back in employment as we had hoped. And you sort of hear people like, my gosh, is it a data integrity issue? Is this issue? It's women. It's women. It's women. It's several million, a couple million women who are at home taking care of those kids and don't have childcare that's accessible to them because so many of the childcare facilities went out of business. And so, Jessica Calarco had a line for me that was the line of late last year, which is what the pandemic has shown us is that other countries have social safety nets and the U.S. has women. And so women went back. Now, the good news is our surveys of our community show that women get it. They get it. They hope that the Biden administration will take some significant action to put in place a social safety net. And at the same time, they're saying, I got to take care of myself. I need to be saving more. I need to be investing more. This has come down to money.
Yeah. I have so much to say about that. I love that line. Other countries have a social safety net and we have women. It reminds me of it was just Mother's Day and it doesn't come with a manual. It comes with a mother, right? Like being a parent doesn't come with a manual. It comes with a mother. It just reminds me of that saying. So talk a little bit about you. Earlier this year, you introduced Women-Led Collection.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit. Just encouraging our members to help support female-led businesses. Give us a little bit of flavor of that.
It's interesting because if we take a big step back, men have always played business and the economy as a team sport. promote each other, buy from each other, recommend each other, sit on each other's boards, get RFPs to each other, hire each other's kids. For whatever reason, women, somehow we got convinced that it was an individual sport. And so we all went and buy our sort of career self-help book about ask for the raise like this and, ask for the promotion like this and do like this. And even there's research that says that when we promoted each other at work, we'd sort of get dinged for it professionally. And so we thought a lot at Ellevest about if women could come together. People say empower women. We don't need to empower women. We have power. We need to recognize that power, whether it's promoting each other at work, whether it's talking about money. And one thing that floated up as we were considering the recovery from, this She session is 90% of women say they would buy from a woman-owned business if they just knew what it was or who it was. And if we could have women buying from women who direct 85% of consumer spending in this country, buying from each other and getting cash back. So we put together a debit card cash back program in which you receive cash back from buying at women-owned businesses. And each of us, it's a win-win. You get cash back, she gets more business, and to help each other. And again, I want to be clear, the other people who benefit from this are men, because so many of women, are related to, engaged with, friends with men, that it's a win-win all around.
Well, and one thing, you talked a little bit about childcare, and then I was thinking about, so many childcare businesses are small businesses and they're women-owned businesses, and often they don't think of themselves as business people. They got into this business because they love children and they take care of children. Anyway, it's just something that we've really been thinking a lot about at the Chamber, both in our just work to advance and support, more access to quality, affordable childcare, but then also how do we support those women-led small businesses to ensure that they are around. I mean, we need them in business first before we can talk about ways to make it more affordable. You got to have a place first. So anyway, I just, it would be an interesting, an interesting place to think about for Ellevest too, is those places who women don't even think about themselves, maybe as small businesses.
Right. Well, because we've been sort of socialized not to. That's what I think a lot about Ellevest are the messages that women have received around money and business, and the messages little girls still receive around money and business. So, today in households around this country, little boys are still told, be CEO, be wealthy, go for it. Little girls, be careful, what coupon clip, et cetera. Dad's investing, mom's coupon clipping. In school, boys get better grades in math for the same answers as girls. And then when they grow up, there's a lot of male money media, CNBC, Bloomberg, Cranes, Barron's. There's nothing for women dedicated. There's Instagram groups and so on. But there's no one gathering place. And then in the sort of women media, it's all guilt-inducing, don't buy the latte, don't get the facial. So we gaslight her into thinking it's my fault because I got the facial. Or it's negative. 2/3 of articles on money to women are negative. Financial planning doesn't have to be really, really hard. And then the other bit of it is it's patronizing. Take a money quiz. And so I think about if you're reading it in a woman's magazine, but you're not seeing it on CNBC, then be careful. But the result of these weird messages we receive around money mean that women tend not to be as confident around money, think we don't know as much as men do, even though we do, question ourselves, but also the feeling we have around money, rather than, as with men, pride and strength and independence, is sort of, it's lonely and it's isolating. And by the way, any amount of money I make is embarrassing. I'm ashamed of it. Either it's too much and I don't feel like I earned it, and my friends don't make as much, or it's too little, and my parents in my school. And so we've really messed with women's heads when it comes to money, such that still today, for even millennial young women, I'm not good with money. It's sort of cute. And it's like, no. There's nothing cute about it in a capitalist society. When money is power and autonomy, being bad with money doesn't help you get forward.
Well, I would love to dig into what mentors or what experience you had growing up that that sort of led you to where you are. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of time.
Well, it's easy. My parents only thought about money. So I'm like, I want money.
Oh, that's
I want
interesting.
money. And,
Yeah.
and I sort of broke out from, I grew up in the South. And so I broke out from my Southern females who were like, no. I'm like, no, I'm going to Wall Street. Because I'm not going to have these fights when I grow up about, not having enough, what we're spending money on.
Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. Well, you mentioned corporate America. You've got, a long and distinguished history in corporate America. What do you envision the role of the business community in supporting women and achieving their professional and personal ambitions? What did you see that wasn't there when you were there, or what can be done?
We could go on for forever.
We could go on
for forever. Look, it is well known that diversity is a competitive advantage. There's research study after research study. I really do think the CEOs know it, believe it, want to drive it. The challenge in so many of these companies is that when they send this message to their managers, as I like to say, middle management is where diversity goes to die. And it's not because they're ill-meaning people. It's typically because if you're a middle manager and you're only promoting someone once a year, every couple of years, you're only hiring every couple of years, those biases that, were fed to you, it's hard to overcome them when you're only on occasion doing the hiring or promoting. And you may have heard about the research, but you're like, yeah, but I'm really comfortable with someone who's just like me. And so when those CEOs say, okay, we're a meritocracy, so go ahead and manage, very little changes. In fact, I'll make one statement that is always controversial. I'd say what is clear is that diversity outperforms meritocracy. And then we see in industries like my old industry, Wall Street, it's the top meritocracy on the planet. Okay, fine. Best and the brightest. Okay, fine. But yet, financial crisis. Every 10 years, there's some sort of financial meltdown. And so you look and say, maybe meritocracy, which leads to mirrortocracy or mantocracy, maybe that's not bringing the diversity that helps reduce the risk as we would like to. So for CEOs, I think you've actually sort of got to force it. You have to force it, and you have to look it in the eye and recognize what's really happening, because the stories we tell ourselves about diversity sometimes aren't true. And one example is you hear again and again in my old industry, well, we love having women, we just can't keep them. And I know David Solomon at Goldman has said when he did the research at Goldman, it wasn't the women are leaving, it's they're not getting promoted. And so, finally, after you don't get promoted for 15 years, you may leave. But we need to make sure we're getting to what really is going on as opposed to what we think is going on. And so what is really going on is women come in, they're not promoted, and so the company loses the benefit of that diversity, true for people of color and people who bring other types of diversity as well.
So we are quickly running out of time. I was hoping that maybe we'd spend 30 seconds and you can tell me what gives you optimism for how women approach their place in the workforce.
Well, young people, the boldness of young women, the ability to start a business today, even though VC, venture capitalists are not flooding women with money, the cost of starting businesses have come down so much that I think that's where you're really going to see things take off, is women building the companies at which they want to work. And then, of course, I'm optimistic because Ellevest is engaging with so many of them as well and trying to help them grow those nest eggs early, invest early, so that they have got the money to leave the job to start the business that they want to start, to have the life they want to live, to leave the relationship that they don't want to be part of anymore. So money is power, and I'm optimistic when I see us engaging with women. I have one quick gift. I know we're out of time. I have one quick gift for your audience.
Yes.
If they go over to ellevest.com/talentforward, or they use Talent Forward as a gift code. If you go to that landing site, ellevest.com/talentforward, we've got some resources for you. We've got some information for you. We've got a little present for you too, particularly if you are a woman who's looking to get ahead and do more with money.
Oh my gosh, that is so wonderful. Thank you so much, Sallie. I had a wonderful time talking to you. I learned so much. Really appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon, and thank you for the gift.
You're quite
Thank
welcome.
you.
Go check it out. Take care.
Thanks. Thank you to our guests this afternoon. Thanks to Marion Lee Johnson, to Tom Monahan, and to Sallie Krawcheck for their time and their wisdom. What a treat to learn from all of them this afternoon, and I hope you all have enjoyed it as much as I have. And thank you all for joining for our first episode of the Talent Forward virtual event series, and be on the lookout for details on our next event for June 15th, and hope you'll save that time on your calendar and join us then. Thanks again.